You don't understand yet, Malik, he whispered. That song your father sang. It doesn't just hold names, it holds power enough to burn down the whole system. And guess what? You are the lock. Your voice is the key. And with that, he raised his hand. The stun baton cracked. The guards moved in. But I didn't scream. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Then break me." Have you ever gotten caught up in a mess just because of one simple thing you said, only to have it unravel into a story you never saw coming? Or have you ever been judged, mistreated by power, discriminated against, or felt like your dignity and self-worth were completely stripped away? Let me tell you my story, what I had to face and endure during those days. Leave a comment with the number 9 to let me know you're here with me and ready to hear what I have to share. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single intense moment coming up. If you're deaf or hard of hearing, please turn on subtitles. We've created special captions just for you because you matter. This is Radio from Hine, the #1 YouTube channel for justice and equality for all, standing firm against racism and discrimination. Wishing you a peaceful day. The courtroom was quiet. Not just quiet, still, the kind of still that makes your skin feel tight, like everyone's holding their breath and pretending they know what happens next. I didn't, but I knew it wasn't this. I could hear the ticking of the old wall clock behind the judge's bench. Every second felt longer than the last. People weren't just waiting, they were bracing, like the room itself was holding onto something it couldn't carry much longer. The judge leaned forward. He was old, wore his robe like armor. His hands gripped the gavel tight like it had become part of him. He had that look, the one adults give when they think the outcome's already been written. The court, he said, is now prepared to render its verdict. That's when I stood up, just me. 10 years old, small for my age, back row. Should have been invisible, should have stayed quiet. My chair scraped the floor. It wasn't loud, but it sounded loud enough to stop time. My mother's hand flew to my arm. "What are you doing?" she whispered. Her voice was thin, almost scared. Her fingers gripped me tight, not to hurt, but to protect, to pull me back into the safety of silence. But I didn't move. I looked forward straight at the bench, at the man in black robes, at the gavel in his hand. And then I said it. 2 words. No one understood what they meant, not yet, but the effect was instant. The judge froze. His eyebrows twitched. His mouth hung open for half a second. Then the gavel slipped. Clack. It hit the bench and rolled. He didn't pick it up. He just sat there, still staring, pale, like he'd seen something he shouldn't have, or remembered something he'd buried. The jury turned. People shifted in their seats. A woman in the front row gasped softly. "Did that kid just speak?" "What did he say?" "My mom tried to pull me back down, baby." "Please," she whispered, "sit down." But I stayed on my feet. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I wasn't trying to be brave. I just couldn't stay seated anymore. The judge cleared his throat, tried to recover. "Young man," he said, voice tight, "you are not permitted to speak during a court proceeding." There was a pause too long to ignore. He looked to the bailiff. A silent command. The bailiff took a step forward, then stopped. He was watching the judge, waiting, unsure. "I said, remove him," the judge repeated louder now. But his voice cracked at the end. It didn't sound like power. It sounded like fear. Nobody moved, not the clerk, not the jury, not the officers lining the wall. Just me, still standing. And the gavel still lying on the bench, right where it had fallen. That's when the whispers started, not about me, about him. "What's wrong with the judge? Why'd he freeze up like that? You see his face." You could feel it, the shift in the room. Something had turned. It was no longer about the verdict. It was about me. Or maybe not me. Maybe what I had just done said, meant. The silence that followed felt like weight, like gravity had shifted. I didn't speak again. I didn't need to. Because the whole room had already changed. The air was different. People leaned forward, looking at me, but also at him, wondering what had shaken a man like that. I was just a boy. They didn't know my name, didn't know why. I was there. I didn't belong to this case. I hadn't been called as a witness. I hadn't been introduced. But whatever I said, those 2 words had cracked something open. and the one man who was supposed to hold the room together couldn't. My mom's grip on my arm tightened, but she didn't say anything else. There was nothing else to say. The judge sat back in his chair. His hands trembled just slightly. His lips moved like he wanted to speak, like he wanted to pretend nothing had happened, that he was still in charge. But nothing came out. He looked at me. And in that moment, I wasn't a child to him. I was a question he didn't want to answer. A truth he thought would stay buried, and somehow I had just dug it up without even knowing how deep it went. 2 words. That's all I said. But the silence after them, it said everything. It used to be just quiet. Now it felt like something watching, waiting. The kind of silence that fills a house when a question is asked and nobody wants to answer. We lived in a small house on the edge of town. Not the kind of edge with trees and calm, the kind where the sidewalks cracked and the bus came late, where the corner store locked the bathroom door and the cashier watched you too close. Our house leaned to one side like it was tired, like it had heard too many arguments through its walls, the kind of house where things went missing and nobody ever came looking. My room was small. 1 window, 1 fuzz fan that worked only when you kicked it twice. The wallpaper used to have rockets and stars, but it peeled like it was giving up on my dreams for me, and still it was home. Mom worked all the time. I mean, all the time. I'd wake up to her already gone, come home to her shoes by the door, but no voice in the kitchen. When she was there, she'd be asleep in the chair with the TV talking to itself. She cleaned houses in the mornings, waitressed part-time at the diner on weekends, folded laundry at the laundromat at night. If someone called out, 3 jobs, no benefits, no days off. Her hands were always dry. Her back always ached. She'd come home with bleach on her sleeves and tired in her bones. "They don't see me, baby," she told me once, sitting on the edge of the tub untying her shoes, slow like every motion hurt. "They see what I do, but not who I am." I asked her why she didn't quit at least once. She just smiled. Not happy, not angry, just resigned, because quitting don't feed you. Malik. I didn't understand then. Not really. But I remembered the tone in her voice, like she'd swallowed something bitter and couldn't spit it out. At school, they called me quiet, polite, the kind of kid teachers liked because I didn't take up space. I'd raise my hand once. If they didn't call on me, I'd lower it. Simple. Some days I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because where I lived, silence wasn't just safer, it was expected. Even the playground had rules nobody said out loud. The white kids played here, the black kids played over there, and I was somewhere in between. Not enough of anything to belong anywhere. People asked about my dad sometimes, teachers mostly, or neighbors who talked too much. "Where's your father, Malik? Your mom sure handles a lot on her own." I'd shrug or smile or pretend I didn't hear them. Truth was I didn't know. He'd been gone since I was 5. No letters, no phone calls, no explanations. Mom just said, "He left." And when I asked why, she'd say, "Because some people leave," and that was the end of that. But I never stopped wondering what kind of man just disappears. Sometimes I'd imagine he was a spy or a soldier on a secret mission. Sometimes I pictured him in another town with a new name hiding from something big. But most nights, I pictured nothing. Just blank space where a father should be. Then came the Thursday afternoon that felt different. The air outside was thick and even. The birds seemed to have lost interest. I was walking home from school when I saw him. An old man standing at the bottom of a sloped sidewalk pushing a cart filled with cardboard boxes that looked like they weighed more than he did. The wheels kept catching on the cracked pavement. He was leaning into it, breathing hard, hands shaking. I didn't think I just stepped off the curb. "Here, sir," I said. "Let me help." He looked up slowly, as if it had been a long time since someone offered anything. That's when I noticed his eyes, pale blue but sharp, like they used to see more than they let on. "That's mighty kind of you," he said, voice low and gravelly. We pushed the cart together. The boxes rattled with every bump. No one else on the sidewalk stopped or even looked. Just another boy helping another man nobody knew. When we reached the top, he let go of the handle and stretched his back. "You got a name, kid? Malik." He nodded. Good name, strong name. There was a pause. Then his voice lowered just a notch. You believe in doing what's right? It was a strange question, but I didn't hesitate. My mom says it's the most important thing. He smiled. Just barely, but it reached his eyes. She's a wise woman. He didn't say anything else, just gave me a slow nod, turned, and walked away with the cart vanishing down the next street like he was never really there. I stood there for a second longer, not sure what had just happened or why I felt like it meant something. I just didn't know what yet. That week before the courtroom, it started normal. Waffles from the freezer, math homework. I forgot until the bus was 2 blocks away, a note from the principal about dress code even though my shirt was clean. Then one night, someone knocked on our door. It was late. Too late for visitors, too early for trouble. Mom opened the door halfway, her house slippers barely making a sound. There was a man standing on the porch, black suit, clean shoes, no smile. He didn't say hello, just reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. Miss Carter, he asked. My mom nodded slowly. He held the envelope out like it might explode. You've been summoned, both of you. She didn't move. He waited. Then tipped his hat, turned, and walked away, just like that. Disappeared into the dark like a scene that didn't belong in our story. She closed the door with a soft click. I was standing in the hallway barefoot watching. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. Her eyes moved fast, too fast. Then she froze. I stepped closer. What is it I asked? She didn't answer, so I looked. 2 names, hers and mine, court summons. I didn't understand. We hadn't done anything. We didn't own anything worth suing over. Didn't know anyone rich enough to press charges, and I sure hadn't broken any windows. I looked at her again. Why would they want me? Her lips pressed into a line. She folded the paper slow and neat, like she was tucking the truth away between pages she never wanted me to read. No reason, she said, must be a mistake, but her voice cracked when she said it. And then, before either of us could move, there was another knock. This one louder, heavier. We both jumped. She reached for the door again, slower this time. Her hand hesitated on the knob like she was bracing for impact. And maybe she should have, because what stood on the other side wasn't just a man. It was 2 uniforms, badges, guns. One officer had his hand resting near his holster. The other one nodded politely. Ma'am, he said we need to ask you and your son a few questions. Her voice barely made it past her throat. About what? The one at the front looked over at me. His face didn't change much. Then he said it, words that made the air heavier. It's about his father. Time didn't stop, but my mom did. She froze right there in the doorway like her body forgot how to move. Her lips parted, but nothing came out, and I felt my throat go dry. My husband, she asked. The officer nodded once. Yes, ma'am, but he left. He's gone. Not gone, the second officer said quietly, and maybe not by choice. I looked at her confused. Her hand gripped the frame like it was the only thing keeping her standing. What's going on? I asked. The officer stepped forward slightly. We believe your father is alive, Malik. That sentence didn't land like a gift. It landed like a punch. I blinked, trying to piece it together alive. The man nodded. There's been new information. It's complicated. That's what adults always say when they don't want you to understand. My mom's face had drained of all color. I'd never seen her look like that before. Can we talk inside? One of them asked gently. She hesitated, then stepped aside. We moved to the living room. It felt too small, like it couldn't fit everything suddenly pressing in. The officer stayed near the door. My mom sank into the couch and I followed. Her hand found mine again and I felt it shake. Mrs. Carter, the taller one, began, Your husband may have been involved in an ongoing federal investigation before he disappeared. There are people who don't want that information coming out. And now, your son's name came up. She jerked. What do you mean? His name came up. He's a child. We know, the other officer said. That's why we're here. Not to accuse. To protect. She looked like she wanted to laugh or cry, maybe both. Protect him from what? The officer didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a folded paper from his jacket and handed it over. She opened it carefully, scanned the contents. Her eyes stopped, froze. And then she gasped. "What is it?" I asked, leaning forward. She said nothing, just kept staring. "Ma'am," the officer said softly, "we need you both to come with us. It's safer if you're not here tonight." For how long, she asked. "We don't know yet. Where?" "The precinct. For now, there's a safe room until we get more answers." I felt the walls close in, my hands curled into fists on my lap. "What do I have to do with this?" I said, my voice shaking. "You might have seen or heard something," one officer said, "maybe from when you were younger, something you don't even realize, you know?" My head spun. I was 5 when he left. The second cop crouched slightly, meeting my eyes. "Sometimes, that's when we remember the most." Silence settled like fog. My mother slowly nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "we'll go." They let her pack a small bag, just essentials. She didn't say much, just moved like someone walking through smoke. I followed her outside. The night air was cool. The police car waited at the curb, engine humming. A distant siren echoed somewhere downtown. The back seat was cold. She sat beside me. Neither of us spoke as the city blurred past the windows. But as we turned onto a dark road toward the station, I whispered, "My dad's alive." No one answered. But my mother's hand gripped mine tighter, and she didn't let go. The walls in the police station felt like they were closing in on us. Too many lights, too many doors with no windows. I sat next to my mother on a stiff plastic chair, our shadows stretching across the pale green linoleum floor, like we didn't belong in the same world as everyone else. Nobody said much. A woman behind the glass window handed over a clipboard. Mom signed something with a pen that barely worked. Then they led us through a hallway that smelled like coffee and old files. We were brought into a small interview room. No one called it that, but I'd seen enough shows to know what it was. 1 table, 3 chairs. Walls that didn't echo. Mom sat down with her arms folded. Her eyes never stopped moving. I sat beside her, legs dangling, chest tight. Then the door opened. A man walked in wearing a gray suit and a badge clipped to his belt. His face was tired in a way that said he'd seen too much but slept too little. He closed the door behind him and didn't sit right away. "Mrs. Carter," he said, Malik. His voice was level, not cold, not warm, just controlled. "My name is Langston. I'm with the Investigations Division." Mom didn't respond. Langston pulled out the chair across from us and sat down, placing a file on the table between us. The room felt colder now. "This isn't an interrogation," he said. "You're not under arrest. I appreciate you both coming in." Still, Mom stayed silent. Langston took a breath, then opened the file. Photographs, paperwork, yellowed edges on some of the sheets, like they'd been kept in a drawer too long. "We've been re-examining a closed case," he said. "Your husband's case." Mom's breath caught, barely, but I felt it. "Isaiah Carter left 5 years ago," she said quietly, walked out the door, never came back. Langston looked at her, not blinking. "That's the official story, yes." He turned the file around and slid a photo forward. It was my father. Younger, smiling, his arm around a man I didn't recognize. Dark coat, slicked back hair, a face that didn't look like it knew how to smile for real. Mom flinched. Langston tapped the photo. "This man," he said, "is currently under investigation for multiple federal crimes. We believe Isaiah was connected to him, maybe working for him, maybe against him." Mom didn't answer. I stared at the picture. It didn't feel real, like someone had photoshopped a different life over the one I knew. Langston went on. "We now have reason to believe that Isaiah Carter did not disappear voluntarily. In fact," he paused, "we believe he may still be alive." Alive. The word hit like thunder. I turned to my mother. Her face had gone pale. "No," she whispered. Langston looked between us. "This isn't speculation," he said. "We have evidence. A recent surveillance image taken in the last 6 weeks in Arizona. We think it's him. Same gait, same scars, same eyes." Mom closed her eyes. Tight. I felt my chest rising and falling too fast. He's alive," I asked. Langston nodded. "But if that's true," Mom said, her voice sharp again, "then why now? Why are you telling us this now?" Langston didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back and laced his fingers. Because, he said slowly, someone is trying to erase every trace of Isaiah Carter from the record, and we believe you and your son may be targets. Mom's hands clenched. We don't know anything, she said. Langston tilted his head. Maybe not, but either way, you're both in the middle of something bigger than you think. He paused, then looked straight at me. Malik, he said, have you ever noticed anything strange? Anything that didn't make sense? I thought about the man with the cart, the way he asked if I believed in doing what's right. I thought about the envelope, the way Mom froze when she read it, the look on her face when she saw my father's photo just now. I don't know, I said. Langston studied me. Sometimes we remember things only when they start making sense. I looked at the file again, at my father's face. The man I remembered was different. He laughed. He lifted me onto his shoulders at the fair. He smelled like motor oil and coffee. That man didn't take pictures with dangerous men in alleys. That man didn't disappear without saying goodbye. Mom squeezed my hand. Langston closed the file gently and stood. We're moving you both to a safe location until further notice, he said. It's a precaution. For how long? Mom asked. As long as it takes. He turned toward the door, then paused. The lights buzzed overhead, faint, uneasy. Detective Langston hadn't said much since we sat down. He flipped through the folder slowly, as if each page weighed more than the last. Mom sat beside me, one hand clenched tight in her lap, the other on my shoulder. Her eyes didn't blink much, like she was bracing for an earthquake no one else could feel. Then a flicker. The lights blinked once, twice, and then came the sound. Not a knock, not a creak, a blast. Far off at first, maybe in the main hallway, a low boom that made the walls tremble and the coffee in Langston's paper cup ripple like it had goosebumps. What was that, I asked, but my voice barely made a dent. Langston stood abruptly, his chair scraped back sharp against tile. Stay here. But he was already reaching for his radio. Static. Then shouting, more shouting. Then another blast, closer this time, closer than before. The hallway outside erupted screams, boots the sharp bark of commands. Langston's eyes met my mother's, his jaw clenched. We need to move. Now. Mom reached for me, but before she could rise, the door flew open. Slammed against the wall so hard, it left a dent. A man stood in the frame, all black jacket, boots, gloves, face shadowed under the brim of a dark cap. His eyes scanned the room like a hawk, and then they landed on me. Langston drew his weapon, freeze. But the man didn't. He moved like water, fast, smooth, inevitable. In 1 second, Langston was against the wall, his gun skittering across the floor. Mom screamed I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. The man turned toward me. 1 step, 2. Mom shoved herself between us. Don't touch him. The man paused, tilted his head as if measuring her threat. I'm not here to hurt him, he said, voice low and dangerous. But if you make me... She didn't move. He sighed, almost bored. You don't understand what this boy is. Langston groaned from the ground, clutching his side. Don't listen to him, he gasped. He's part of the group. The cobalt hand. The man turned slightly, just enough to sneer. You don't even know what you're protecting. He looked back at me, and this time I saw it recognition. He knew who I was. And something else. Fear or obsession. Come with me, Malik, he said, calm, almost kind. I don't even know you, I whispered. You will. Over my dead body, Mom spat, and then bang gunfire. Langston fired from the floor. The bullet caught the man's arm, spinning him slightly, but he didn't fall. He just hissed through his teeth and lunged for Langston again. Chaos chairs toppling, my mother dragging me back, Langston screaming. More officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Drop it. The man raised his hands, blood running from his sleeve. Easy, he muttered. I'm done. He dropped to his knees, but his eyes never left me. You have something of his, he said quietly. What? He smirked. You'll find out soon enough. Officers rushed to cuff him. 2 tackled him down, wrenching his arms behind his back. Who sent you? Someone barked, no answer. Langston, pale and bleeding, forced himself upright. Get them out of here. An officer grabbed my mother's arm gently. This way, ma'am. We need to secure the premises. Mom clutched me so tight I couldn't feel my fingers. We were halfway out the door when I turned back. The man in black was staring at me, bleeding, smiling. And in the loud quiet of the room, I heard him whisper, "You have something of your father's." My heart stopped. My father. The man was shoved forward, taken down the hall. Langston limped behind, ordering officers to sweep the floor. The hall reeked of smoke. Someone barked orders, another groaned in pain. Sirens somewhere outside. But inside me, it was silence. A silence so heavy, I could barely walk straight. As we moved down the hallway, officers urging us forward, I kept hearing his voice, like it had burrowed into my skin. You have something of your father's. What did that even mean? I didn't have anything. No heirloom, no letters, no secrets. Just questions, and they were multiplying. We passed other officers' tents, rushing. One held a bloodied radio, another shouted into a phone, but no one looked at me. No one explained a thing. A female officer held the back door open. Let's go. We're moving you to a safer location. Mom nodded, her grip still iron around my arm. We stepped into the cold night. The air smelled like burnt wires and fear. I glanced over my shoulder once more. The man was gone. But his words lingered, like smoke that wouldn't clear, like a trap that had just been triggered. You have something of your father's. The words clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. What did he mean? What did I have? We didn't go back home, didn't grab clothes, toothbrushes, nothing. 1 minute the world was still spinning on its axis. The next it had tilted violently, and we were just trying not to fall off. After the chaos at the station, they put us in the back of an unmarked car. No flashing lights, no sirens, just quiet. The kind that makes you feel watched, even when there's no one in the rearview mirror. Mom didn't speak, neither did I. We just held on to each other the way people do when the storm's already broken their roof, and all that's left is praying the floor holds. The car drove for a long time, through streets I didn't recognize, past buildings that looked half forgotten. Until finally, we pulled up to a small single-story house with peeling paint and a porch light that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to die or hold on. This is it, the officer said, unlocking the back door. This where we're staying? Mom asked, voice hoarse. He nodded. Temporary safe house. You'll be checked on twice a day. Don't open the door unless we call first. She nodded, tired. Too tired to question anything anymore. The officer left us with a new set of keys, a half-empty fridge, and a silence that was heavier than the one we'd brought with us. There were 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a couch that smelled like old smoke and time. We didn't unpack, just sat on the edge of the bed like we didn't know what sleep was anymore. Then the knock came. 3 short taps, pause, 2 more. Not the kind of knock that asks permission. The kind that announces itself. Mom froze. I thought they said they'd call first. I was already halfway to the peephole. And standing outside was a woman I'd never seen before. Tall black hair braided tight to her scalp like she didn't have time for nonsense. A long tan coat clung to her frame even though the night wasn't cold, and her eyes looked like they'd already seen how this story ended. She didn't wait for us to answer. She just said loud enough for the door to hear, "My name is Veronica Blake. I worked with Isaiah Carter. I know who you are, and I know why they're coming." My breath caught. Mom reached for me instinctively, but this time I stepped forward. "Who are you?" I asked. Veronica didn't flinch. "I told you I worked with your father." "You knew my dad." I did. Her voice didn't shake. She said it like a fact, carved in stone. Mom opened the door, not all the way, just enough for the chain to catch. Veronica met her eyes. "Camille," she said, "you look just like the photo on his desk." Mom's hand trembled on the handle. Veronica held up a folded piece of paper sealed in a plastic bag. "He told me if anything ever happened to him, if things went south, I'd find you, and I'd give you this." Mom unlatched the door. Veronica stepped inside. The air shifted, like the room finally remembered to breathe. She handed the bag to my mom. Inside was a letter, handwritten. The corners creased like it had been opened and closed 100 times before it ever got to us. Mom opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the words. Her mouth parted, then she sat down. Hush. I sat beside her. Her hand trembled as she handed it to me. I read it out loud. If you're reading this, it means the worst happened. I'm sorry. I never wanted to disappear. I never wanted Malik to grow up thinking I ran. I was taken. And the people who took me, they don't just kill. They erase Malik's son. You have something they want, something I left with you. Keep your mother safe. And if Veronica found you, that means it's time to finish what I started. I couldn't breathe, not because of the words, but because of the signature. Isaiah Carter, my father, alive. Veronica didn't wait for us to gather ourselves. She stood by the window, scanning the street like an old soldier back on patrol. They're watching every exit out of this city, tracking every phone, every move, but they don't know I'm here. Why now, I asked. Because she said, turning toward me, your name was whispered in court, 2 words that stopped everything. She looked at me, then really looked, and for a second her face softened. You said the words Malik, just like he knew you would. That means you're ready. Ready for what? She didn't answer right away. She walked over to the dining table, pulled out a worn-out map, unfolded it, and pointed to a spot deep in the woods. I know where your father is. The room was silent. My heart wasn't. She looked me dead in the eye and repeated, I know where your father is. The map lay unfolded on the rickety kitchen table, its creases forming a web of lines that seemed to mirror the tangled path ahead. Veronica's finger traced a route through dense forests and winding backroads, stopping at a red X marked deep within the Appalachian Mountains. This is where your father is, she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. I stared at the spot, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Mom stood beside me, arms crossed tightly over her chest. How do we know this isn't a trap, that he's really there? Veronica met her gaze, because I put him there years ago. When things went south, we had contingency plans, safe houses, aliases, escape routes. This one was his last resort. I looked between them, the gravity of the situation sinking in. So what's the plan? Veronica leaned in, her eyes sharp. We leave at dawn. Travel, light, stay off the grid. No phones, no credit cards. They're watching everything. Mom nodded slowly, the resolve in her eyes hardening. Then we better get ready. The morning sun cast long shadows as we loaded the car, a beat-up SUV Veronica had procured through means I chose not to question. The drive was silent at first, each of us lost in our thoughts. As the city gave way to rolling hills and dense forests, Veronica broke the silence. Your father was a good man. Malik. He got involved with the Cobalt Hand, thinking he could change things from the inside, but they were too far gone. I turned to her. Why didn't he come back? Why disappear? She sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Because he knew they'd come after you. After Camille, staying away was the only way to keep you safe. Mom reached over, placing a hand on my knee. He did it for us. I nodded, the knot in my stomach tightening. We stopped at a gas station on the outskirts of a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone. Veronica filled the tank while Mom and I stretched our legs. Inside, I grabbed some snacks and water, the mundane task feeling surreal amidst the chaos of the past few days. At the counter, the clerk eyed me curiously. You folks passing through? I forced a smile. Yeah, just a road trip. He nodded slowly. Be careful out there. Strange things happening lately. Back in the car, I relayed the conversation. Veronica's jaw tightened. We need to move, now. As we drove deeper into the mountains, the roads narrowed and the trees grew denser. The GPS had long since lost signal, and Veronica relied solely on the map and her memory. Suddenly, she slammed on the brakes, causing the car to skid slightly. Ahead, a fallen tree blocked the road. Damn it, she muttered, scanning the surroundings. Mom turned to her. Is there another way? Veronica nodded. There's a trail through the woods. It'll be rough, but it leads to the cabin. We grabbed our bags and set off on foot, the forest enveloping us in its quiet embrace. The hike was grueling, the uneven terrain and thick underbrush slowing our progress. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in shadows, we finally spotted the cabin nestled among the trees. Veronica approached cautiously, signaling for us to stay back. She knocked in a specific pattern, waited, then knocked again. The door creaked open, revealing a man with a weathered face and piercing eyes. "Veronica," he said, a hint of surprise in his voice. She nodded. "It's time." He stepped aside, allowing us in. Inside the cabin was modest but cozy, a fire crackling in the hearth. The man introduced himself as Elias, an old friend of my father's. "He left a message," Elias said, retrieving a small box from a hidden compartment. "Said you'd come one day." Inside the box was a flash drive and a note. I read the note aloud. "Malik, if you're reading this, it means the time has come. The Cobalt Hand is more dangerous than you can imagine, but you have the power to stop them. Trust Veronica. Trust yourself. And remember, the truth is the only weapon you'll ever need." I looked up, determination settling in my chest. I'm ready. As the firelight danced across the walls, Veronica met my gaze. "Then let's finish what your father started." The fire popped. One of the logs cracked like a distant bone. I was still staring at the note in my hand when Veronica stood up slowly, her eyes drifting toward the back hallway of the cabin. Her voice dropped into something quieter, heavier. "He's in there," she said. My heartbeat slowed and sped up all at once. Mom looked at me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her hand brushed against mine, the smallest, softest kind of courage, and then let go. I walked down the hall alone. The floor creaked like it hadn't been stepped on in years. I counted them. 1, 2, 3 steps, and then I saw him. He was sitting by the window, back turned, shoulders square. A rifle leaned against the wall beside him, though. The light from the window cast long shadows over his figure, but I could see the outline of his jaw, sharp still. For a moment I froze, and then he spoke. "You're taller than I imagined." My breath caught. His voice deeper than I remembered, but there, familiar and foreign at once. "You're real," I whispered. He didn't turn around. "I wasn't sure you'd ever come. I wasn't sure you'd still be here." Finally he rose, stood tall, and turned. Isaiah Carter, my father. His face was older, more angular. The softness from my childhood had been stripped away, carved into caution. His eyes were different too, like they'd forgotten how to smile. He looked at me like a man seeing a photograph from a war he never talked about, and I couldn't speak. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, then stopped a few feet away. Neither of us moved. Then, "I'm sorry," he said. Just that, 2 words, the same ones I had screamed in court. It was almost enough to break me. Almost. "Why?" I asked, voice tight. "Why did you leave? Why did you stay away?" He didn't answer right away. His jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to the rifle in the corner, then back to me. "I had enemies," he said finally. "Not the kind you hide from in courtrooms or churches, the kind that watch your mailbox, that follow your son to school." My throat burned. "You could have told me, written anything." "I couldn't," he said, "because if I reached out, they'd find you. They'd find your mother. But they found us anyway." His shoulders slumped like the weight he'd been carrying finally shifted from his spine to his chest. I know. I wanted to yell, cry, throw something, but instead I just stood there, my hands curled into fists, then released. "What did you do for them?" I asked, "for the Cobalt Hand?" He looked down, then up. I tried to burn them down from the inside, but the fire got out of control and I had to disappear, before it burned you too. I stepped forward. "I don't need a ghost for a father. You needed a live one." "And what do I need now?" He didn't answer. But something in his eyes shifted, something vulnerable and afraid. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I'm here now." And for a second, just a second, I wanted to believe him. Behind us, footsteps echoed. Veronica appeared in the doorway, breath shallow. "We've got movement outside," she said. My dad's head snapped toward her. "How close?" "Too close." He moved instantly, no hesitation, grabbing the rifle from the corner and stepping to the window. Through the fading light, I saw it too. A glint. A flicker. The shape of a man stepping between trees. Then glass exploded. A bullet ripped through the window where my father had just been standing. He ducked instinctively and shoved me to the ground. "Get down!" Veronica screamed from the hall. I hit the floor hard. My mother came flying in behind her, diving across the room toward me. Another shot rang out. Splinters rained from the wooden doorframe. "They found us," Veronica growled, peeking through the side window with her pistol drawn. "We have to move now." My dad fired back 2 quick shots through the hole in the wall. His face was stone, but his eyes weren't calm. They were calculating fierce. More bullets slammed into the cabin. The walls groaned. Dust rained down from the rafters. "Back door," he yelled. "Move!" Veronica kicked over a bookcase, using it as a makeshift shield. My dad shoved open the door, grabbed the keys hanging on a nail by the frame, and waved us through. Go we ran. Out the back, into the cold night air. The trees swallowed us, but not before a black SUV roared into view from the tree line, headlights slicing through the dark like knives. "Run to the truck," my dad shouted. Now I didn't argue. I didn't breathe. I just ran. The truck was old, rusted, dirt-caked, but it roared to life when he turned the key. Mom and I jumped into the back seat while Veronica slammed the passenger door. "Buckle up," she snapped. Gunfire cracked behind us. Go, go, go. The tires screamed, gravel sprayed. My dad swerved us down a narrow forest road, headlights bouncing wildly. Behind us, the SUV gave chase. "They're gaining," I cried. "No, they're not," Veronica muttered, rolling down her window and leveling her gun. Bang, one shot, one tire gone. The SUV spun out, flipping once before crashing into a ditch. The flames lit up the trees behind us. Silence fell in the cab. No one cheered, no one smiled. That was just the beginning. My dad's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He didn't look at us, just the road. "They're going to keep coming," he said. Mom was shaking, her voice brittle. "Then we need help." "We can't go to the police," Veronica added. "They're already compromised." My father didn't speak. For a long moment, only the sound of tires on dirt filled the cab. Then he said it. "There's one man who might help." Veronica stiffened. "No, you can't be serious. I am." Mom looked between them. "Who?" "Travis Dean," he said. The name dropped like lead in the truck. "He's in prison," Veronica whispered. "For good reason," Mom added. "He used to be one of them," my father said. "But he left. They killed his daughter for it." My stomach twisted. "And you think he'll help us?" I asked. "He's the only one who knows how to beat them from the inside." Silence. Then Veronica sighed. "He's at Crescent Ridge Federal." "That's 4 hours west," Dad said. "Then we better move." The prison was cold steel and silence. Veronica flashed a badge she shouldn't have had said the right names, and 30 minutes later we were inside a small gray visitor's room. The man who walked in looked like a ghost, not old, but hollowed out. Muscles stiff from fights, long past, eyes like broken glass. "Isaiah Carter," he said. "Didn't think I'd see your face again." "Didn't think I'd come back here," my dad replied. Travis sat. "You got 5 minutes." My dad leaned in. "They're back. They found my family." Travis didn't blink. "Not my problem." "They'll find yours too," Veronica added, "even in here." He looked at her. "They already did. She's dead." Veronica lowered her gaze. "I know." Something cracked in his jaw, something buried, dangerous. "What do you want?" "We need to stop them," my dad said. Travis laughed, once dry, bitter. "Good luck with that." "We need your help," I said softly. His eyes flicked to mine. "I don't know what they want from me," I told him, "but they think I'm part of this, and I'm tired of running." His stare lingered, then he exhaled. "There's only one way to get me out of here," he said. "We're listening," Dad said. "They're transferring me in 48 hours. Midnight run, low security, 2 guards, no chopper, just a van and a highway." My mom blinked. "You're saying—" "We hijacked the transport," Travis said. "You get me out, I burn them down." The room went still. We had a choice and only one way forward. The sky was the color of ash, flat and empty. A storm without rain, like the air itself was holding its breath. We'd parked the stolen utility van beneath a crumbling overpass 2 miles from the transport route. Dad leaned against the hood, arms folded, eyes distant. Veronica stood nearby, double-checking the gear. Reese Alvarez loaded magazines without saying a word, her face set like stone. I sat in the back seat, heart thundering against my ribs. Today was the day we flipped everything. Travis's voice echoed in my mind from hours before, back in that prison cell. They're moving me through Sector 12, no air support, 2 SUVs, 6 guards minimum, you'll have a window. 3 minutes. You miss it, I go dark. He'd paused, looking each of us dead in the eye, and if I get killed, this whole thing dies with me. I didn't sleep after that, I couldn't, not with the image of failure strangling me in the dark. Dad tapped the van twice. Let's move. We drove in silence, the wheels crunching gravel and dirt as we crept along winding back roads. The tracker Reese had planted said the convoy was 5 minutes out. Every bump in the road felt like a gunshot to my nerves. Veronica's voice came through the radio clipped and focused positions. Reese responded calm but cold, northbound ridge, ready. My mom adjusted her seatbelt. Her lips moved soft, silent. I couldn't tell if it was prayer or memory. Then headlights. 2 black SUVs rolled down the road like sharks, circling prey, flanking a gray armored van. No siren, no flashing lights. Just the quiet hum of something dangerous approaching. Dad whispered, 3, 2. He slammed the van into drive. We burst from the embankment like a shot. Tires screamed, the armored van skidded sideways, brakes howling. The SUVs split wide, confused. That was our opening. Veronica and Reese opened fire from opposite ridges. Glass exploded like fireworks in the dusk light. Dad veered toward the transport. Reese lobbed a smoke canister into the road, and a thick white mist engulfed everything. Gunfire cracked the air. I ducked ears, ringing lungs, locked. Through the haze, muzzle flashes flickered like lightning. Dad reached the armored van first, yanked the handle locked. It won't open. We remembered what Travis had told us. They'll use a timed biometric. You'll need the driver alive. Reese dropped from her ridge position, sprinted low through the smoke. In one smooth, terrifying motion, she disabled the front guard with a brutal silenced shot. Veronica covered her, laying down suppressive fire with deadly precision. Now Reese called. Dad hauled the driver out, slammed his hand against the scanner. The rear doors clicked, hissed, and swung open. Travis stood inside, hands cuffed, ankles shackled. His face was bruised, but his eyes burned. Took you long enough? Dad tossed him bolt cutters. Make it count. And for a moment, just a moment, everything worked. Then a scream from Reese ambush. 3 more black SUVs burst from the tree line like predators. Floodlights pierced the mist. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. The orphan syndicate had been waiting. Fall back, Dad shouted, but it was too late. Gunfire roared from all directions. Metal shrieked. Reese took a hit to the shoulder, crumpling behind a tire. Veronica dragged her behind cover. Reese fired back, eyes blazing. I scrambled out of the van, heart pounding, lungs on fire. My mom pulled me down, shielding me with her body. Travis was still cutting through his final chain when bullets tore through the open doors. Dad grunted, his leg giving way. Blood pooled fast beneath him. Dad, I screamed, crawling toward him. He winced, but locked eyes with me. You have to run. I'm not leaving you. He grabbed my shirt, yanking me close. I could feel his blood soaking through. His voice was low, rasping. You're not dying here, Malik. Not here. Another scream. My mom. I turned just in time to see her thrown to the ground by a man in black armor. She kicked, bit-clawed, fighting like something primal, but they outnumbered her. And then I was yanked backward. A bag over my head, arms pinned behind me. My scream never made it past the cloth. Darkness. I thrashed, bit down on a hand. Someone swore, another punched my side. Hard wind left my lungs. They shoved me into a vehicle, the smell of rubber and metal. The world lurched, engine roaring, gravel crunching underneath. I had no idea if my mom or dad were still alive. No idea if anyone made it. Only silence. breathing mine and theirs, then a voice close to my ear, calm, icy. You were never just bait, Malik, and then everything faded. I woke in the dark. My wrists were bound, the air smelled like damp concrete and fear. And then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, echoing. A chair scraped against the floor. I blinked, eyes adjusting to low light. And there he was, Kellen Drake. He looked nothing like I'd imagined. No horns, no blood on his hands. Just a man in a tailored coat sitting like he owned the air. He smiled, slow and quiet. Welcome home. Malik. I didn't know what was worse, being captured, or realizing I was exactly where they always meant for me to be. The walls were concrete, cold, cracked, and sweating like they knew what was coming. My wrists were tied behind the chair so tight they burned. My lip was split. My shoulder ached from where they'd slammed me down. Earlier, I didn't cry, not because I wasn't scared, but because I knew they wanted me to cry. Then the door opened, and he walked in. Kellen Drake, leader of the Cobalt Hand. He moved like someone who already owned the room. Black gloves, clean shoes, eyes that didn't blink unless it meant something. He stared at me for a long time before speaking. You know who I am, he said calmly. I nodded. Once he stepped closer. Good. Then you know I don't make threats. I make promises. I didn't say a word. My mouth was dry, my chest hollow, but I held his gaze. He crouched to my level. You're a brave boy, just like your father. His voice was slick, like oil sliding across a knife. He tried to burn us down. From the inside, and for a while, it worked. He stood and began to circle the chair. But Isaiah didn't destroy the ledger. He hid it, encoded it, every name, every dollar, every secret, buried inside a song. He stopped behind me. A lullaby. My spine went cold. We don't have the song, he said, but we know where it is now. I didn't move. You, he whispered. I could hear the smile in his voice. You are the lock, your voice, the key. I shook my head. I don't remember any song. Don't lie to me, Malik, I'm not. His hand snapped across my face. The sting echoed louder than the slap. I gasped, my cheek burning, but I didn't cry. He stepped in front again, calmer now, cold like steel. Your father sang it to you every night. We know that. We also know the pattern embedded in that melody unlocks everything. I don't remember, I shouted. Then you'll remember under pressure, he signaled the guard. 2 men entered. One held a stun baton. The other cracked his knuckles like he was waiting all day for this. I looked up at Drake. Please, I don't want to hurt you, Malik, but you are holding the future hostage. He turned away. The baton cracked against my ribs. My body spasmed. Pain lit up my side. Another hit. My shoulder, then my thigh. My scream tore through the silence. Drake didn't flinch. Sing the song. I don't know it. Sing anything your father ever sang. Tears blurred my vision. I can't. He left when I was 5, but your brain didn't. The fists came next. A sharp jab to the gut, a backhand across my ear. I choked. My vision swam. My breath came in shallow gasps. Again, Drake said, Wait, I coughed. You can't do this. On the contrary, he replied, I have to. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. You don't understand yet. Malik, this song doesn't just expose the names of the corrupt. It proves who's funding them, protecting them, wearing badges, sitting in courtrooms. This song could collapse an empire. He pulled away, and that's why I'll crack your mind open if I have to. I looked up at him through tears, my voice barely more than a whisper. Why not just kill me? Drake blinked, because that would mean admitting we lost. He motioned again. The baton buzzed back to life. Last chance. I squeezed my eyes shut, searched the black spaces of my memory. Nothing, just static. The baton slammed into my leg. I screamed again. This time louder. The kind that didn't feel like it came from me. Then Drake raised his hand. Silence. I was gasping, barely conscious. He crouched once more. We'll keep going tomorrow, he said almost kindly. Maybe then the melody will cut. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, rest well. He walked to the door. The guards followed. But before stepping out, Drake turned and said, "You think your father hid the truth to protect you. But Malik, he used you." The door slammed shut. Darkness returned. And all I could think was, if the only way out of here was a song I didn't know, I might never get out. The pain came in waves, sharp, blinding, then dull and bone deep. I didn't know how long I'd been in the chair. The lights overhead never turned off. The concrete floor was wet. I didn't know if it was from the pipe that dripped every 7 seconds or from something else, something darker. Blood tasted like rust in my mouth. I had no idea what time it was. No idea how many times I'd said the same thing. I don't remember the song. Kellen Drake didn't scream. He didn't shout. That wasn't his style. He smiled like a man who had all the time in the world. "You know," he said, circling me like I was a chessboard, "I used to think your father was the hardest man to break until I met you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My lips were split, and my jaw throbbed from the last punch. He leaned in close. His cologne smelled expensive, like power and poison, but there's a difference between stubborn and stupid. He turned to one of the guards, again. The blow came from behind. My ribs screamed. The chair rocked. I bit down on a cry. "I'm not asking for the national anthem, kid," Drake said, crouching to my eye level. "Just a lullaby, the one your father sang to you. That's it. Simple." I blinked through the haze. I don't remember. Drake's jaw twitched. Wrong answer. Another strike. This one to my side. I felt something shift, pop inside. My head spun. "You're a Carter," he whispered, "which means you don't get to be innocent. You're a weapon, a ledger disguised as a lullaby, and I will crack you open." I spit blood on the floor. He stood up slowly, brushing off his coat. "You think pain makes you a man?" he asked. "It doesn't. Pain makes you obedient." He snapped his fingers. 2 guards grabbed my arms, lifted me from the chair. Drake walked over to a metal door and knocked twice. It opened with a hiss. The room beyond was worse. Dark cold, no windows, just chains. "Put him in," Drake ordered. They dragged me in and slammed the door shut behind me. There was no light in here, only the sound of my own breathing. And then a voice. "I thought you'd hold out longer." I turned my head. There was a man in the corner, shackled, eyes hollow, beard thick, voice dry like sandpaper. I didn't know his name, but he looked like someone who'd been here a long time. He tilted his head. "They're trying to break you too, huh?" I didn't answer. "They broke me a long time ago," he said, "but that doesn't mean they won." He shifted slightly, chains rattling, "Whatever it is they want, don't give it to them." I leaned back against the wall, chest heaving, my whole body trembled. I wanted to cry, I wanted my mom, I wanted my dad, but most of all, I wanted to survive. And then the door opened again. Blinding light, Drake's silhouette ready to sing Malik. I stood, somehow, legs shaking, spine crooked. I didn't scream this time I said it, steady. "I'm the son of Isaiah Carter. I don't sing for people like you." Drake's smile cracked, not all the way, just a flicker. He nodded once and left. The guards rushed me, one grabbed my collar. But I was ready. I twisted, bit kicked. They hit back harder. This time I blacked out. When I came to, I was strapped to the chair again, wrists bound, head pounding. But something had shifted, not in them, in me. I wasn't scared anymore, not the same way. I stared at the mirror on the far wall. I knew he was watching. And I whispered, barely audible, "You can break my bones, but not the song." Because the truth. I didn't know the words. Not really, but I remembered the sound. The hum in Dad's chest when he carried me to bed. The rhythm that never changed. The safety in it. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The first thing I heard was the crack. Not the crack of bones or voices, but of stone splitting a sound that didn't belong in silence. Then came the rumble, muffled, distant, but coming closer. My eyes snapped open. My arms were still tied behind the chair, wrists burned, shoulders screamed. The sting from the last hit still buzzed in my cheekbone. Kellen Drake was gone, but his promise still hung in the air like smoke. You'll sing eventually. Malik, everyone breaks. I couldn't. I pulled at the ropes, raw fibers biting into skin until, boom. This time it wasn't distant. It was here. Concrete dust fell from the ceiling like ash. The fluorescent lights above me flickered once, then died completely. For half a second, the room went dark. Dead dark. Then gunfire. Close, sharp controlled voices shouted. Someone kicked a door. Another explosion. I held my breath. A shadow moved past the glass slit in the steel door. Another shout. Then the door blew open. Literally. The hinges snapped, metal screeched, and the whole frame bent inward like a soda can crushed by a fist. Figures stormed in through the smoke, 3 of them all black gear, no insignias, 1 carried a rifle, 1 had a sidearm. And the third was my mother. Her eyes locked on me in an instant. Malik, she screamed. Behind her, Veronica fired over her shoulder, clearing the far corner. And then he stepped in Dad. His shirt was torn, his jaw bruised, blood trailing down his arm. But his eyes, God, his eyes, they burned. He crossed the room in seconds, slicing the ropes with a combat knife. My arms dropped limp and screaming. He pulled me into a one-armed hug that was rough, fast, real. You okay? He asked, voice tight. I'm fine, I croaked, even though I wasn't. Reese moved in next. She had cuts across her temple, her breathing ragged, but her weapon didn't waver. Drake, she asked. Not here, Dad said. Keep moving. We raced down the hallway, footsteps echoing over alarms that had finally started blaring. I stumbled once. Veronica caught me. Almost out, she said. Keep going. We rounded a corner and ran straight into hell. More guards, 4 of them, armed, waiting. Bullets flew before anyone said a word. Reese ducked and returned fire, taking 1 in the leg before dropping 2 of them. Veronica rolled into cover and took the 3rd. The 4th aimed straight for me. Dad didn't hesitate. He stepped in the way the shot hit his side again. He grunted, but stayed up, grabbed the guard by the vest, and slammed him into the wall. 2 hits down. Blood soaked through Dad's shirt. Dad, I said, I'm fine, he barked, but his steps were heavier now. Mom pressed the cloth to his side, eyes wide with panic. We need to go now. We broke through the last hallway and hit a back exit. A black SUV was idling outside, the engine already running. Travis Dean was behind the wheel. When he saw us, he flung the door open and jumped out to cover. Move, he shouted. We all piled in, Veronica first, then Mom dragging Dad in behind her. Reese followed, still bleeding. I was last. But just as I shut the door, he appeared, Kellen Drake, standing in the smoke, calm, like the fire didn't touch him. He raised his gun, aimed at me. Dad roared, reached for his sidearm. But it was Veronica who fired first. 2 rounds, chest and shoulder. Drake staggered, dropped the gun, but didn't fall. He looked at me one last time and smiled. We're not finished, Malik. Then he vanished back into the smoke like a ghost, too angry to stay dead. Travis floored the gas. Tires screeched, the SUV fishtailed before gripping and launching forward into the night. No one spoke for a long time, only the sound of Dad's breathing. The engine. My heart. Veronica checked Reese's leg bullet through the side, painful but clean. Mom held Dad's hand, trying not to cry. And I just watched the road disappear behind us, black and endless. We had made it out, but not whole. Not untouched and not done. In the silence, Dad finally turned to Veronica. His voice was hoarse, flat, final. It's time to end this. The cabin was silent now, except for the sound of Dad's breathing steady sharp, like he was holding everything in by force. We'd made it out barely. Kellen Drake had retreated. Reese was stable, but something in Dad's eyes told me this wasn't a win. Not really, just a pause before the next round. I sat near the window, watching the shadows shift against the trees. Everything looked calm from the outside, but I knew better now. Calm was where danger waited. Veronica pulled out a map and spread it across the table again. Her fingers traced lines like nerves, roads, facilities, supply chains. There's only one place left, she said, the old bunker northern branch. That's where they've moved operations. Reese, wrapped in bandages, leaned against the wall, her voice hoarse. Security will be doubled, maybe tripled after what we did. I know, Dad said quietly. That's why we don't sneak in this time. Everyone looked up. He stood near the fireplace, arms, crossed shoulders squared. The blood on his sleeve had dried, but the fire in his voice hadn't faded. We hit them head on. Veronica raised an eyebrow. You sure that's not just pain talking? He shook his head. It's time we don't run. We don't wait. We end this. I looked at him, really looked, and something shifted in me. Not fear, not even anger. Readiness. Then we need a plan, Veronica said. Dad stepped forward, grabbed a marker, and circled the northern facility on the map. This place. It used to be a storage site. Now it's the brain surveillance archives. Backups. And the ledger, Mom asked. He paused. Then said the words that cracked the silence in half. I don't have the ledger. No one spoke. Even the fire seemed to stop flickering. Veronica leaned forward, Isaiah. What do you mean? He exhaled slowly. I burned the physical copy 5 years ago. I had to. It had too many names, too many lives. Then how do we bring them down? Reese asked. He looked at me. Not just at me, into me, because I am the ledger. My heart stopped. All the names, all the routes, codes, drop points. I memorized it before I destroyed it, he continued. They've been hunting it for years, never realized they were hunting my memory. Reese looked stunned. That's insane. It's true. Veronica confirmed he trained for this, drilled it for months. We had fail-safes. And if you forget, I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. He turned to me. If I forget, you remind me. I blinked. Me. You remember that song I used to sing when you were little? He asked. I nodded. The lyrics weren't just lyrics, he said. They were coded, rhythms, notes, phrases, each one tied to a piece of data. You memorized it without even realizing. Mom's breath hitched. You put the ledger in his lullabies. Dad nodded. I didn't have a choice. If anything happened to me, I needed the knowledge to live on. Veronica rubbed her temple. They'll never stop if they find that out. They already suspect, Dad said. That's why they wanted him. That's why Kellen Drake went after him. Reese stood slow but certain. Then we hit them before they regroup, while they still think we're bleeding. We are bleeding, I said. Exactly, she replied. That's what makes us dangerous. We spent the next hour drafting every detail, entry routes, fallback plans, comm signals. Dad marked sentry positions from memory. Veronica updated weapons loadouts. Reese listed code phrases. I just sat there, the song from my childhood replaying in my mind. And now I knew what it meant. Every lyric was a line in a war I didn't know I'd been born into. As we wrapped up, Veronica looked around the room. If anyone wants out, now's the time. No one moved. Even Mom, whose hands had trembled since the cabin, said, I'm not leaving him again. Dad placed a hand on her shoulder. For a second, the soldier dropped, and I saw the man she used to love, maybe still did. Then he turned to me. You ready? I nodded always. The fire burned lower, casting us in gold and shadow. There was no turning back now. As Dad rolled up the map and loaded the last clip into his rifle, I asked the question sitting heavy on my chest. What if we fail? He looked me dead in the eyes. Then we fall loud enough for the world to hear. The van rolled to a stop at the base of a hill. Ahead, through the fog and pine, the compound loomed like a scar in the earth. Steel walls, searchlights slicing the night towers dressed in shadows. This was it. No more hiding, no more running. Dad checked his rifle one last time, then looked at me. You remember the signals? I nodded, fingers tight around the walkie. Reese and Veronica moved like ghosts, checking gear, syncing watches. Mom adjusted the strap of her bag, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen. We were ready. Dad's voice cut through the dark. We hit the power first. That buys us 2 minutes tops. Then Reese takes the east tower, Veronica the west. I go for the server vault. And me, I asked. He crouched beside me, lowering his voice. You stay behind cover, only move when I tell you. I want to help you are, he said, his eyes soft for the first time all day. You remembering that song that helps more than you know. He stood, raised his fist once. Go. We moved like parts of a single machine, each step rehearsed, each breath synced. A guard wandered near the gate. Reese silenced him without a sound. We slipped through the breach in the fence, hidden by smoke grenades Veronica had rigged herself. And then boom. The lights died. The compound flickered, then went black. Sirens sputtered and cut off. For the first time, the fortress was blind. We ran, gunfire cracked from the north tower. Reese had made contact. Veronica tossed a flashbang. Screams followed. Dad kicked in the side door. We were inside. Steel halls echoes. The stink of sweat and metal. Every step was a countdown. He led us through like he'd built the place himself. Right, left down 2 flights, past a locked panel code entered from memory. The server room door loomed ahead, sealed with biometric glass. Dad stepped forward. A scanner blinked red, then green. Click, it opened. Inside, rows of machines humming like caged animals. He moved fast, pulling hard drives, slotting encrypted USBs. We can't destroy this place, he said, but we can erase it. Suddenly, footsteps too many. Reese's voice buzzed in my ear. They're on to us. 2 trucks, full back gate. Veronica, fall back in 3 minutes. We weren't going to make it. Go, Dad told me now. No go. He shoved the last drive into his coat, raised his rifle, and stepped into the hallway. I followed, behind us. Alarms screamed back to life. Bullets tore through pipes. Sparks rained. I ducked behind a crate as a guard fell, blood smearing the floor. Dad kept firing. He didn't stop until Veronica grabbed his collar and yanked him back. Out. Now. We ran me in the middle, Mom and Reese covering the rear, Dad limping but alive. Veronica tossed another charge. Boom walls crumbled. We burst through the back exit just as headlights cut through the trees. The trucks had found us. Reese turned. I'll hold them. No, Dad said. Together. We made for the woods, gunfire at our heels. Somewhere in the chaos I fell, rolled down a ditch, lungs burning. I heard shouting, my name, then Boots. Someone grabbed my collar. I looked up, bracing for another mask, another enemy. But it was Mom. She pulled me up with strength that felt like fury. Run. We did. Through the underbrush. Through the dark. Somewhere behind us, the compound began to smoke Veronica's final charge, probably. It wouldn't flatten the place, but it would bury its secrets. We reached the clearing where the second van waited. All of us bleeding, breathing alive. Just as Dad climbed in, I grabbed his arm. I remembered more, I said. His eyes locked on mine. Yeah. I sang it, quiet, just one line. He froze, mouth parted. That part, he whispered, that's the final access key. You forgot it. No, he said. I buried it too deep, needed you to bring it back. I nodded. He smiled, then kissed the top of my head. Let's go home, he said. We pulled away from the smoke, the fires, the shouts fading behind us. But I didn't look back, not this time. I wasn't running anymore. In the rearview mirror, the bunker collapsed in a bloom of flame and steel. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a kid caught in something too big. I felt like a soldier. 3 months later, no one said the word safe. We just said quiet and hoped it stayed that way. A small town up north. Cold mornings, a cabin that didn't creak like the last one. New names, new school, same sky. But everything inside me was different now. Mom took a job at the local library. Veronica was long gone off the grid again, chasing down embers of the cobalt hand before they reignited. Reese recovered quietly, never saying much about what she lost that night. Dad, he chopped wood like it was his confession. We didn't talk about the raid, or the flames, or the blood in the snow. We didn't need to. I kept the lullaby to myself. Not because I was afraid, because I knew its power now. Each note still played in my head like a secret key. Sometimes at night, I'd hear my dad hum it low, like a promise he was still here, still fighting. But the war wasn't over. Not really. Justice doesn't end when the villains fall. Sometimes it doesn't start until the court doors open. That day, I walked into the courthouse alone. Not the same courthouse from before. A different state, a different case, but the setup felt too familiar. Rows of cold benches. A high bench with a man in robes who didn't smile. Security who watched certain kids too close and others not at all. They were trying a boy 10 years old, like me. His name was Hine Black, hoodie wide, eyes a little too quiet. They said he'd resisted authority. They said he'd spoken out of turn. They called his mother uncooperative. They called him a disruption. I sat in the back, heart pounding. The judge tapped the gavel once. This court is ready to hear closing statements. Julian looked at his mother, then down at his hands. He wasn't going to say anything. He didn't think he was allowed. I stood up, just like before. And just like before, the room froze. All due respect, Your Honor. I said, my voice louder than it had ever been. The gavel stopped midair. Everyone turned. The judge narrowed his eyes. Who are you? I took a breath. My name's not what matters. What matters is that this boy doesn't belong in chains for speaking the truth. A murmur moved through the gallery like wind in dry grass. The judge's face tightened. Son, you'll need to leave this courtroom. No, I said, clear, sharp, unshaken. He's not the problem. The system is. The silence is. Security started moving. I kept going. You said the law protects people, but I watched the law try to bury me for something I didn't do. I watched it ignore my mother's voice. I watched it punish us for surviving. Julian's eyes found mine. The judge raised the gavel again. But this time, another voice broke through. Let him speak, Detective Langston. Older gray at the temples, standing in the aisle in plain clothes. He didn't look like the man who once interrogated me. He looked like someone who had learned the cost of being wrong. He nodded once. Let him speak, he said again. The judge hesitated, lowered the gavel. I stepped closer to Julian's table. Don't let them make you forget who you are, I told him. They did that to me, but not anymore. Julian's voice cracked. They said if I spoke, it'd get worse. It might, I said, but staying quiet, that's how they win. He looked at the judge. May I speak? The judge didn't answer at first. Then reluctantly, he nodded. Julian stood. He didn't yell, didn't cry. Just told the truth. The courtroom didn't fall apart, but it didn't stay the same either. You could feel something shift, something small but undeniable. The court recessed. Julian and his mom walked out free. Langston came up to me afterward. You're not just a kid, he said. You're a reckoning. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and walked out. Outside, the air was sharp with cold, but it felt clean. Back home, Dad was waiting on the porch carving something from a block of wood. He looked up as I approached. How was court? I shrugged. Didn't blow anything up? He smiled. That's a first. I sat next to him. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. He handed me the carving, an eagle wings outstretched, strong, unapologetic. Looks like it's about to fly, I said. He glanced at me. So are you. The sun dipped low behind the trees, staining the sky with firelight. I used to think I was small. Just one voice, but I'd seen what one voice could do. I'd watched a courtroom shake. I'd watched a system flinch. And I'd watched a boy stand tall in a place built to make him shrink. So maybe I was still a kid, but I made the whole damn system tremble. Justice isn't something you wait for, it's something you make. Malik Carter's story isn't just about a missing father or a secret song hidden in lullabies. It's about something deeper, something we see every day, but often don't speak about the cost of silence. In a world that too often punishes you for raising your voice, Malik stood up, not as a hero, not as a soldier, but as a 10-year-old boy who refused to stay quiet. And that changed everything. This story reminds us that justice isn't handed out. It's fought for sometimes by people no one expects. A courtroom, a child. 2 words, and the illusion of order begins to crack. How many Malik Carters are out there today? Kids being silenced, mothers working invisible hours, fathers lost in systems that erase instead of protect. This story, though fictional, reflects a very real truth. We cannot wait for justice to come knocking. We have to build it ourselves. Sometimes the loudest impact comes from the quietest voice, the one that dares to speak in a room built to silence it. Search us. This story is a work of fiction created purely for educational and entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals or organizations is purely coincidental. We do not aim to attack, discriminate, or harm any person, group, or institution. Now it's your turn. What part of Malik's journey hit you the hardest? What would you do if the system tried to silence you? Leave your thoughts in the comments, like the video. If it moved you, share it to spread the message and subscribe to our channel for more stories that shake the silence. Because maybe you're the voice someone's been waiting to hear. Thank you for watching this video, wishing you a peaceful day, and see you in the next one.